Moment to locate the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. During the presentation today, please use the questions box to send in any questions you might have. Looking at the handouts section of the GoToWebinar panel, please note also that a PDF copy of today's presentation is posted and available for reference. With that, we will go ahead and turn things over to Andrea Stevenson. Hello.
Hello, Mike, and thank you for the introduction. I appreciate everything that LTAP has done to get this three-part series kicked off. And so we are ready to roll to the next slide. Thank you for joining us today, and this is Show Me the Money. That's our intent, but really we want to show you what we have available to local communities as you move forward to improve infrastructure and help your communities grow. As we mentioned, this is a three-part series. This is the third part today. However, we do have these archived, and they are available to you if you're interested in seeing the other two sessions. So let's get started with a few tips about what you can expect from this program and some application ideas as we move forward. So really, we want to just make sure that as our stakeholders, you're aware of transportation funding and opportunities that are available to you. We do know that there are a lot of things to learn, that you are very busy people, and you may not have all the details about what it takes to have a successful application at ODOT. So that's what we want to make sure you learn from today's webinar is what is the big picture perspective from some of our programs, and then today we'll be diving down into those specific program details. We want to give you a few tips about applying for funds and utilizing those funds appropriately on your eligible projects. Also, we want to make sure that you understand the expectations of our program managers and our guidelines so that you do have successful applications with projects that advance to construction. So what does the big picture look like? Typically on an annual basis, the department has about $320 million of discretionary funds. These are both federal and state that become available to locals. And so this isn't directly just for roads. We have aviation and transit. We provide some to our MPOs, our RTPOs, and then we fund a lot of bridges, roadways, intersection improvements, and small city projects, bikeways, and pedestrian projects as well. We have about 17 different program opportunities for locals. So if one doesn't fit a particular need of yours, there may be something else that can provide that level of support. We want to direct you to our website. So in the event there's something that may have been in one of the other two sessions or something else applies to you that we haven't covered, certainly go to our website, click on funding, and that will bring up many of the opportunities available to locals at ODOT. We also have our resource guide, and it is currently being updated for 2022 with some new program announcements in it. Not necessarily new, but we're adding some new material to it. And so please request one of those from your district office if you're interested in getting one of those. They're very nice to carry along in a briefcase or have at your desk for reference. So I also want to have a quick advertisement here for our LTAP Center. They do provide a lot of training to local staff on a variety of topics. You can also go to that website as well. They do help us with funding education. We go to many of the conferences across the state, and then you're welcome to reach out to them to seek input and request training for a variety of topics at your local community. There also are a number of other resources for your team. Our district offices are the first line of contact for our locals, and so each district has a LPA manager which works directly with the locals, and you can reach out to them at any time and get that information that you need before reaching out to central office. We also have something called TIMS. It's called the Transportation Information Management System, and this is a really nice data bank of roads and assets on the state system and in some cases the local system. And so you can access TIMS to get some of that information that you would typically be required to complete on an application. We've talked about our friends at the RTPOs, the MPOs, and FHWA. They are great stakeholders as well. And then the Ohio Public Works Commission and ODNR are certainly two state agencies that are worth reaching out to seek additional funding. They did participate in our two previous webinars and have funding available to locals for a variety of projects. Lastly, check out our guidelines, our manuals, our website. It provides a lot of great information for applicants or for those communities that have already been awarded funding. As you advance projects, it outlines what the requirements are for properly using those funds on projects. Okay, next slide. So a couple things. We really want to make sure that you as our locals and the local communities out there have the competitive edge as you're moving forward. We want to make sure that as you submit applications, that you submit excellent applications. There is a tremendous need right now at the local level for funding. We have been seeing this for the last few years, and the application numbers have really jumped. The programs are very competitive, and we all the time receive more requests than we have available funds. And so each of those programs get many, many requests for millions of dollars. And so we want to make sure that your applications have the best potential to get looked at and to get awarded funding. So a couple tips, start the process early. If you know you have a need out there and your community is talking about it or they're expressing concerns about it, start early, gather that data, understand what the purpose and need is, and start drafting that up and sharing that with the community, getting some feedback from the elected officials and moving forward with that. Make sure as you gather that information that you put enough together to tell the story and to justify the need for being awarded funding. We also want to make sure that you follow the guidelines and submit excellent applications. So here are a few things that you will want in an application. We covered this in the first session, but it is important enough to cover again. We want to make sure you have a definitive transportation need, community support, make sure those facts are aligned and are accurate in the beginning of the application and the end of the application. Make sure your cost estimates are accurate, the application is easy to read, and that you have supporting documentation like photos, graphics, and maps that help tell the story along with your content in the draft write-up. In the event we ask you for more information, it's best that you are responsive and that you give us the detail that we ask for. A lot of times if we think an applicant is very close to being awarded funding and we have additional questions, those additional questions help potentially push you over the finish line to be a local that gets awarded funds. And so it's very important that you get back to us quickly with the information to help your application get a little boost. If at first you don't succeed, please try again. In many cases, really great projects get awarded. Those that don't get awarded often do the second or third time, just because of the competitive nature. We do see repeat customers and we often do award those projects if they're justified and they have, it's a good project. Read ODOT's recommendations when you get your letter and then take a second look at the project. Maybe it needs to be tightened up. Maybe the scope needs to be narrowed a little bit and just refine and adjust that application. And you can also call us. You can call the district LP manager and ask questions, and we'll give you that information to provide some insight on how you can be successful and get that money that's needed for your community. So on that, let's go to the next slide. And lastly, before we transition, I do want to share a few thoughts with you about the infrastructure bill. We talked about this in the first session, but we do know that the department, the state, is going to get some money. It's not fully vetted yet as to what that looks like and how it's going to be distributed and allocated. The Federal Highway Administration is working with the department to understand what that package looks like. And we will certainly be sharing that information in the future with our stakeholders, with the communities across the state, with the legislators. And so it will be something that, we're certainly putting a lot of careful thought to and looking at all the options. We do believe that there's going to be some additional money put towards things like TAP, bridges. We understand that there's going to be several discretionary pots, potentially 17, that locals can apply for on their own. And so we believe that after the first of the year, there will be more detail on that. And that could change and frame up some of the programs that we currently have here at the department. And so what we are trying to do is we're trying to take advantage of all the funding opportunities coming to us from the federal government, but also trying to streamline and provide flexibility and maybe even eliminate some redundancy. And so that's the direction we're moving in. And so I guess my recommendation is at this point with the new infrastructure bill is to stay tuned. There will be a lot more information in January and February about the direction and how the money will be used. With that, we can move to our next presenter. And it's going to be Jeff Peyton, and he is the supervisor of our local LET section in our office. And so, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to take just a few minutes this morning and talk about the Ohio Bridge Partnership Program. This is a program that was initiated in 2014 with a $120 million program that ran between 2014 and 2017. And during that time, we were able to replace roughly 230 bridges across the state. After that program concluded, the department made the decision to continue the program with an annual allocation of $5 million a year. And that has continued until where we are currently. This is a federally funded program. It provides funding to counties, both counties and municipalities, for bridge replacement projects. And unlike many of the other programs that we have within our office, this program provides 100% of the funding for both construction and construction engineering costs. Like I said, it's funded at $5 million a year, and we have a $1 million per project limit cap on those projects that are awarded. With this program, we do accept applications. We have a 6-week application cycle starting March 1st through April 15th. And eligibility criteria for this program, it can be owned by either a county or a municipality. The bridge has to be open to vehicular traffic and meet the federal definition of a bridge, that being a deck length of 20 foot or greater. Have a sufficiency rating of 80 or less, a general appraisal of 4 or less, and be structurally deficient. The scoring criteria, scoring is one of the things, the factors that we use in awarding funding for projects that apply. There are many factors that go into what projects are selected, but the scoring is one of those that's greatly viewed. First would be the general appraisal. We also look at sufficiency rating, deck summary, and like I said, additional factors that go into it. It's reviewed both internally here in central office by the Office of Local Programs, Office of Structural Engineering, as well as the districts review these as well. We also look at the bridge load limit, the unemployment, economic health of the area, the applicant, and we look at the average daily traffic counts. So last year, like I said, this program, after the initial program concluded in 2017, we had a 1-year hiatus, and then we reintroduced the program at the current funding level in 2019. That year we had received 32 applications. In 2020, we did see a spike. We had 51 applications, and I believe it was because of some of the funding constraints due to COVID that we did see a reduction in the last funding cycle, down to 26 applications received. And then the millions of dollars for the application values. Nearly 20 million in 19, again, a spike of nearly 31 million in 20, and then down to just over 16 million in 2021. So that's all I have for the Ohio Bridge Partnership Program. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nichole, and she's going to go ahead and introduce the Municipal Bridge Program. Nichole?
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Andrea. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day. We appreciate it. The Municipal Bridge Program does provide federal funds to municipalities and regional transit authorities. I think that's a little known fact, but as long as they have a vehicular bridge, the railroad bridges don't count. Those aren't eligible, but if a regional transit authority does have a vehicular bridge that meets the criteria, they can apply for funding. And this program will fund bridge replacement, bridge rehabilitation, and bridge demolition. So that's another little known fact, is that if you have a bridge that has been closed recently and you want to demolish it, and even if it hasn't been closed recently, but you just want to demolish it and get it off the National Bridge Inventory System, this program will pay for the bridge demolitions. However, bridge replacements and rehabilitations will be given a higher priority than demolition, but it is eligible. So this program, currently we are utilizing toll revenue credit to fund all of the awards at 95% of the eligible construction and construction engineering cost. So typically the program would provide 80%, but we're using that toll revenue credit to bump it up from 80% to 95%. So the local would have the upfront cost of design, environmental, right-of-way, if any, and then 5% of the construction and construction engineering cost up to a specified cap. And then if the project went over that specified cap, they would be 100% responsible for those costs. We currently are utilizing toll revenue credit through state fiscal year 2027. So with this program, applications are accepted annually, and we start July 1st through August 15th. We are about 4 years out, so July 1st starts our state fiscal year. So this past July, we were in state fiscal year 2022, and we were looking at awarding projects in 2024 and 2025. So this is not used for an emergency program. Unfortunately, ODOT does not have a local bridge emergency program, so you're really going to want to be looking at the conditions of your bridges and making sure that your inspections are up to date and accurate, and planning ahead, noticing how quickly is the bridge deteriorating, and do I need to start thinking about applying for funds 3 or 4 years out to fix this bridge. We don't want to get into a situation where the bridge has to be closed due to the safety of the traveling public, and then it's remaining closed for a couple years because funding hasn't been awarded yet. So just something to think about with any of our bridge programs is, kind of be thinking in the future and make sure that your bridge inspections are up to date and accurate. This program does have an annual allocation of $11 million. So the criteria, what is it that needs to be done in order to be eligible? So it has to be owned by a city, village, or RTA. Counties may not apply for the Municipal Bridge Program. They have their own bridge program through the County Engineers Association of Ohio. It has to be open to vehicular traffic. Now, if it has been closed recently for the safety of the traveling public, we will take that into consideration, but recently is generally 6 to 12 months. So if your bridge has been closed for about 10 years or 5 years or more, it would not qualify for this program because it does have to be open to vehicular traffic. It does have to meet the federal definition of a bridge, so greater than 20 feet in length, has to have a sufficiency rating of 80 or less, a general appraisal of 5 or less, and it has to be structurally deficient. So a couple years ago, it could be structurally deficient or functionally obsolete, but Federal Highway Administration changed their definition of a deficient bridge. And so the intent of this program is to replace or repair deficient bridges. So when they changed their definition of a deficient bridge, we looked at the criteria again, and so we did away with the functionally obsolete option. So just structurally deficient. Now, a target bridge list is run every year, and it's usually about a month before that July 1st opening solicitation date. And I will pull all of the eligible bridges based on this criteria that you see. Now, I run that about a month before, and then our solicitation cycle is a month and a half. So there sometimes are some timing issues. So that target bridge list is not the end all be all. If your bridge is not on it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't apply. It could be that in the time I ran it, you had a new inspection, and now it does meet the criteria. So talk to your district, talk to me. If it does meet the current criteria, as long as your inspection report is updated into AssetWise, our bridge inventory system, by that August 15th date, the bridge would be eligible to apply. So just something to keep in mind. A lot of people think if it's not on the target bridge list that it automatically disqualifies the bridge, but it could just be a timing issue with the inspection. Another issue that we've seen is that some people will call us and say, hey, I've looked at the condition of this bridge and it's not on your target bridge list, but I really think it should be. And so if you provide the structural file number, I can then look it up and tell you why it was not on the list. And a lot of times we have collaborated with our Office of Structural Engineering. We have a wonderful gentleman named Omar who is very passionate about helping municipalities get accurate inspections and provide safe options for the traveling public. So there have been a couple times where he and I have collaborated with a municipality and their consultant, and he was able to say, yes, this bridge really is in this condition. And so they were then eligible to apply for the program. So if it's not on the target bridge list, but you think it should be or you think it's eligible, please reach out and give me a call or an email, and we'll do some little research and maybe get structures involved and see what we can do for it. But it never hurts to ask. So like the Ohio Bridge Partnership, we do have scoring criteria as one of the variables to help us rank the applications. And then we go on the general appraisal. Because this is a replacement or rehabilitation program, we don't score on the sufficiency rating like the Ohio Bridge Partnership program does. We split that up into a substructure condition rating, superstructure condition rating, and a debt condition rating. And then the other criteria is the bridge load limit, the annual average daily traffic, and then the economic health of the county that the municipality is located in. So this is not something that you have to worry about determining as far as the economic health. That's something I do behind the scenes as the program manager, but basically what we do is we look at the unemployment rate of your county compared to the unemployment rate, the statewide unemployment rate, and then you get points if you're above that unemployment rate. So here's just some history. You can see we kind of have been up and down throughout the years, and like Jeff Peyton alluded to, we think that large dip was due to financial constraints and uncertainties due to COVID-19. But you can see it kind of picked back up a little bit last year. And then the amount asked for, we peaked at just under $57 million in 2020. This is an $11 million a year program. And you can see even last year we did get $27 million worth of applications. So our local major bridge program is for our, I always say ginormous, and I always get made fun of, but I say if you can say it and spell it, it's a word. So these are our ginormous bridges, and the program will provide federal funds to counties and municipalities. So since these are the large bridges, counties are eligible for this program. And again, it will pay for bridge replacement, rehabilitation, or demolition. And like with the Municipal Bridge Program, It will fund 95% of the eligible construction and construction engineering costs. So this program is utilizing toll revenue credit as well. So what is a local major bridge? I'm glad you asked. A local major bridge is defined as a movable lift bridge or a bridge with a deck area greater than 35,000 square feet. Currently, there are 54 bridges that are defined as a local major bridge. And so applications are accepted annually from September 1st through October 1st. And this program has an annual allocation of $20 million. So before we jump into the criteria, I will say, if you have a bridge, this program has made exceptions before in the past. So if you have a bridge that is very, very close to the square foot, but it doesn't quite meet it, go ahead and talk to me, and I can talk to structures, or go ahead and apply, because it never hurts. It really just comes down to the number of applications and the amount asked for in that solicitation cycle. So if you have a bridge that's 33,000 square feet and you're the only application and the work makes sense and it seems reasonable, we're probably going to recommend it for funding. So it never hurts to try, never hurts to ask. So the current criteria, once it is defined as a local major bridge, in order to apply, it has to have a general appraisal of 4 or less, or it has to be legally posted for load restriction. It has to be open to vehicular traffic. And again, we can make exceptions if it's been closed recently for the safety of the traveling public. It has to be structurally deficient. And since these are larger bridges and require more in-depth involvement and take longer, you do have to have a completed feasibility study. Again, the scoring criteria for this, we go off the general appraisal. We actually did something different with this program because these are the larger bridges. So you get points based on the local amount contributed and the local percent contributed of the overall project. And then we have the economic health again, and we have the annual average daily traffic, and then the functional class of the roadway. So our application history previously, because there are so few bridges and these bridges are designed to last on average about 75 years, previously there wasn't a formal application cycle for a number of years. Those interested would just submit an application, as they identified work needing to be done. And then back in 2019, we received a lot of interest in the program, and we decided to bring back the formal solicitation cycle. So in 2019, we did receive 5 applications requesting just under 89 million with a total construction value of 161 million. And so we were able to fund 2 of the 5 applications for a total of $20 million funded. In state fiscal year 2020, we received 2 applications, and they were 2 of the 5 that had not previously been funded from the year before. And they were requesting $40 million in local major bridge funds with a total construction value of $68.6 million. That 68.6 is a little misleading because one of those applicants was the city of Cincinnati with the Western Hills Viaduct. And as you guys know, or may not know, that bridge for the work is going to be well over $300 million, but the city and the county in conjunction had decided to phase it, so they were only including that cost of that phase. We did award to the city of Cincinnati $20 million that year for the Western Hills Viaduct work. So the bridge inspections, like I said, it's important to have accurate bridge inspections. So many times we will get a bridge, and as we're reviewing it, the district bridge engineers or our Office of Structural Engineering may say, well, this bridge is in worse condition than what the inspection report shows, or it's in better condition than what the inspection report shows. And so if you don't have an accurate inspection report, it may mean that you don't meet the eligibility criteria, and B, it may mean that the proposed work doesn't accurately address the condition of the bridge. So for example, if your superstructure is is in horrible condition, but your substructure is still good, you would probably need a rehabilitation rather than a full replacement. But if your bridge inspection report is off, you may think that you need a full replacement to address the issue of the bridge. As I stated earlier, we do not have an emergency local bridge program, not bride program. Fortunately, they're both words, so spell check doesn't nab that. And then we do have a municipal bridge inspection program. So as I said, Omar is my wonderful contact in the Office of Structural Engineering. So if you're interested in joining the municipal bridge inspection program, please give him a call or email him. His contact information is right there on the slide, and he can explain more about it. And this will ensure that you're getting yearly accurate inspections to help you determine the actual condition of the bridge. So our small city program, this provides federal funding to small cities. So what's a small city? What do we consider a small city? We consider a small city anything with a population from 5,000 to 24,999, and it does have to be outside of a metropolitan planning organization's boundaries because they get their own pots of money for their cities. And it can be used for pavement rehabilitation, widening, safety, and signal projects. Ultimately, the intent of the small city program is to replace or repair deficient roadways. It's not to mitigate congestion or to better align an intersection where the pavement is still in really great condition. So something to keep in mind as you're considering your applications. Again, this program is utilizing toll revenue credit. So we are funding construction and construction engineering at 95%. And then the local, as with the other programs, is responsible for your upfront costs such as design, environmental, right-of-way, that 5% match, and then anything over the construction cap. So we do accept applications annually from May 1st through June 15th. And like our bridge program, these are a couple years out. So be thinking of the condition of the road, how quickly it's deteriorating, what may need to be done. So we will be soliciting for state fiscal year 2026 this year. And then this program has an annual allocation of $10.5 million. So the scoring criteria is a little different based on the project type. So we will score the annual average daily traffic, the volume to capacity, and the economic health for all projects. And that will make up 60 points. The other 40 points depends on the project type. So if it's a roadway project, then your other 40 are comprised of the pavement condition rating. If it's a signal safety project, then we comprise the other 40 points on safety data, such as, is it located on the SIP map, and is it red, which is high, or blue, which is kind of medium on the SIP maps. Crash frequency and equivalent property damage. Previously, widening projects were scored based on safety data as well, but what we found is that a lot of times it wasn't really a safety project. The road was in need of some major repairs, and while they were there, they were widening it, and it did provide some safety benefits, but not enough to score well with the safety criteria. So for widening projects, I will actually score them both ways and take the higher score. So again, you can see the weight factor in the points based on the volume to capacity, the economic health, and the annual average daily traffic. And again, those are the 3 scoring criteria for every project type. And then you can see the breakdown for the pavement condition rating, the SIP maps, the crash frequency, and the equivalent property damage. So this program is highly competitive, but it is a really fun program, so please keep the applications coming. It is very interesting to see all of the proposed repairs or different project types that come in with this program across the state. So in 2021, we did receive 27 applications, and we requested about $41 million with a total overall construction value of $72 million. Again, we got about 4 times the amount of what our annual budget is. So it is very competitive, and that goes back to what Andrea had said, where you're going to want to make sure that your application is competitive, that you truly understand the intent of the funding program, leveraging additional sources of funding. So for example, the city of Urbana had a really great project, and we were able to incorporate small city money, safety money, and transportation alternatives money. So what they did was they actually did analyze the project very well. And instead of coming to small city and asking for the full amount of the project, which we had seen in previous years from other applicants, they broke out the work type and figured out which work types were eligible for which program, or which parts of the project would be eligible for which program's funding. So rather than ask for a large amount from one program, they were better able to get funded because they asked for a smaller amount across 3 programs. So it's always good to leverage additional sources of funding when you can. Just helps strengthen the application as well. And so with that, I will thank you for your time today, and we'll take any questions.
Thanks, Nichole. And as a reminder to our audience, the questions box is open, so please feel free to send in questions at this time. And while we're waiting for questions, are there any additional items to discuss among our panel?
Thank you, Mike. I think we're good, but we're ready for questions for any of the presenters at this point in time.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Thank you. So the questions box is in the GoToWebinar panel. Please type in anything you'd like to ask about. And we might have a fairly quiet group today.
Or we just did such a great job explaining the programs.
All right, we have a question from Josh. He says, are the applications available for download, and is there any for or instructions for filling them out?
So we do have an online application. We utilize a platform called FormStack. So when the solicitation cycle starts, we will provide that link on the appropriate funding webpage for that program, and it'll take you right to FormStack. And the nice thing with FormStack is that you can save and resume later. If you do hit that save button, just make sure you have it email you a link, because that link is going to be how you access your application in the future. And if you hit save more than once, you come back and start more than once, always request a link, because the link changes each time you add data. So if you don't request a new link and you use your first link, it's not going to save any of that data you entered between the first and the second time. So, but I provide a template. Unfortunately, with FormStack, you can't kind of download a blank application, but I do always kind of cut and copy and paste into a Word document. So with the municipal bridge, local major bridge, and small city, a template of the application is provided a couple weeks before the solicitation cycle starts, so that you can take a look at it and see what questions are being asked and what information you may need to gather.
Thanks, Nichole, and thanks, Josh, for your question. We do have time for questions, and here's one from Mike. For the money with the new transportation bill, is it envisioned that new programs will be created, or is it envisioned that the current programs will just be modified?
Great question. This is Andrea. So we do know that at the federal level, there are going to be the 17 discretionary programs where the federal government is going to request applications, and then they will be, reviewing those applications and determining who gets awarded the funding. And so we believe, and we think we know at this point in time, that those 17 programs are going to be available to locals, and that will be a new opportunity for locals to have a more direct connection to federal funding programs. At the department, with we believe it's going to be about $330 million that we're going to get. We know that there's going to be some emphasis on bridges. That's very important at this point in time. And then we also know that there's going to be some additional funding moving towards TAP. Those are the programs that we have the most direct influence over. As it pertains to other programs, we know there's going to be electrical vehicle charging emphasis and possibly some other programs. And so as this information becomes more available to us, we will be sharing it. And it might even be a great opportunity to have another webinar to update locals on all the funding changes in the programs. I do believe there's going to be some changes to our local funding programs, you know, how we package those up and what those look like. But that's still yet to be determined after we have more information and you know, those decisions are made by executive management. So please stay tuned. We promise we will communicate these changes to you, and thank you for the question.
Yes, thanks, Andrea. And we have a follow-up question from Josh. Any idea on the time frame for that additional TAP funding?
So we don't know that yet. We do think that, you know, we will have some answers and some information by March or April, which could potentially, you know, some of that funding could potentially be available in state fiscal year 23. So like I said, stay tuned. We're excited to hear about it as well. And, you know, the other thing that will be interesting, and it's a differentiation between programs, is some of the TAP funding gets directly allocated to MPOs, and we have 17 MPOs across the state. And then we get a rural statewide pot of money. So we're also waiting to see what that breakdown of the TAP funding will look like. We're not sure yet if it's gonna, you know, be most directly allocated towards the MPOs or if there's going to be some kind of formula that's associated with that. So we're waiting on that answer as well.
All right, we have a question from Katie. For TAP, will it be a new application or will you review the existing applications?
Oh, for this funding cycle, we're staying the course. Yes, this would be something that would fall into place for a future funding cycle. And, you know, if something changes, we'll certainly make those adjustments. But Jeff Sheener is on the line and he's our TAP program manager. But at this point in time, we're not making any adjustments until we have more definitive information.
All right, sounds good. We have plenty of time for additional questions, so please feel free to type those in.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for questions to come in, if I could just add something about the small city program. That population, I forgot to mention, is based on the U.S. Census data. So we just received the data from the 2020 census. We are waiting on our Office of Research and Planning to look at the data, and because the MPO boundary lines may change, which would change the cities. But look for an updated list of the eligible small cities probably about February or March, sometime after the first of the year. So the list of eligible cities that's currently on our website will change once we get the new census data.
Very good. Thanks, Nichole. We have a question from Caroline. Is there a website that lists the new 17 funding opportunities from the federal government?
Great question. I have not seen anything yet. Right now, you know, they're outlined in the bill, and I think it's a 1,300-page document. And so you're certainly welcome to go to the Federal Highway Administration's website and take a look. I don't think it's there yet because they're still trying to decide how they're going to administer programs and projects. So that's another, please stay tuned. We hope to communicate those details in the future. So thank you.
Very good. We have time for additional questions, so please type those in. Panel, anything else to talk about?
I will say something unique with the Municipal Bridge and Small City program is that in addition to the application, we do have our respective district offices review your applications, but then we also have a committee. So we actually invite, I say invite because that sounds more polite than I guess I could say request rather than demand. But we do invite you as the applicant to come in and actually present your application. It used to be in person, but then COVID. So the last 2 years we've done them virtually, and they've still gone very well. But I don't know if people are like me, where sometimes my thoughts fly faster than my fingers, and I tend to leave off stuff that I think might be relevant or important. So this is where, again, Andrea mentioned, if we ask you for more detail, follow up, but especially be responsive, since if you do apply for municipal bridge or small city, you will be asked to come in and present the application. And so we've found that it's very beneficial to you as the applicant, and then to the committee as well. So we're not making funding decisions maybe based on misunderstandings within the paper application. So that's something that's a little different than the other programs that you've seen throughout the three-part presentation.
All right, thanks, Nichole. We have a question from Katie. When will oil and shale grants be announced?
Mike, I'll take that question. That program ended this last solicitation cycle. So that program will no longer, at this point in time, will no longer be awarding funds. So that was a short-term program that expired this year with the most recent funding awards.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Follow-up from Katie. When will the last cycle be announced?
The last cycle happened this past solicitation cycle. So
Okay.
we have, that has passed.
Very good. Any additional questions from our audience? Okay, with no additional questions, I would like to thank Andrea, Jeff, and Nichole for presenting today, and thanks everybody for your participation.
Thank you, Mike.